Hi, I am Tanya, a growth marketer at Meritto. I welcome you all to this edition of Illuminate by Meritto. For those who don't know, Meritto is the global standard in enrollment technology for colleges and universities. We believe that admissions teams shouldn't have to navigate complex systems or struggle with outdated tools in an AI driven world where speed and precision are essential. That's why Meritto stands out with the purpose built solutions designed for admission professionals, not tech experts. With its intuitive interface, robust data architect, and AI driven automation, Meritto empowers institutions to recruit smarter, engage students more effectively, and streamline the entire admission journey. And for those of you who are on to their first Illuminate by Meritto webinar, it is a series of live webinars where we bring you the latest insights, best practices, and technology on everything about student recruitment and enrollment. We host experts from Meritto alongside experts, thought leaders, and decision makers from the world of education, offering unparalleled insights for the education industry. And today we have Dr. Sheris Y. Peters. Dr. Peters, the Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Life at Clark Atlanta University, brings over a decade of transformative leadership in higher education to this webinar. With a proven track record of increasing enrollments, developing strategic enrollment plans, and leading multi-million dollar operations across institutions like Jacksonville State University and Miles College, Dr. Peters offers deep insights into effective student recruitment, retention strategies, and institutional growth. A PhD holder and Harvard certified leader, she is passionate about redefining enrollment management to create lasting impact in today's evolving education landscape. We welcome you, Dr. Peters. And joining us with a truly global perspective is Shabazz Siddiqui, Director of International Business at Meritto. With over a decade of experience in education technology, Shabazz has worked with over more than 1,200 institutions across UAE and Malaysia, helping them drive meaningful enrollment growth through technology that's built for execution, not complexity. He's played a key role in making Meritto the go to platform for institutions aiming to simplify their processes and scale faster. And today, he's here to help us connect strategies to implementation. Hi, Shabazz.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Hi, Dr. Peters, and welcome to our audience.
So
I'm
the
glad
goal
to
of
be here.
right. So the goal of today's session is to explore how institutions can achieve remarkable growth and precision in student recruitment while remaining true to their core missions and values. And we've got just the two right people to dive with us. So without further ado, let me start by turning the attention to Dr. Peters. Dr. Peters, Clark Atlanta University has achieved an extraordinary milestone, attracting over 46,000 applications for a freshman's class of just 1,200 seats, coupled with significant leap in your academic profile. So could you walk us through exactly how this incredible growth happened? What were the core strategies and systems you implemented that made this growth possible?
So good morning, or it's good morning for me, everyone. Thank you, Tanya. So it did not happen overnight. And sustainable growth that's the university can manage well has to be strategized. So, I was saying to Shabazz earlier, I've been in this business for 40 something years, higher ed enrollment. I've been somebody's chief enrollment officer for over 3 decades. And I've used the same formula at every institution, truthfully. So small institutions, large institutions, private, public, HBCUs, PWIs, MSIs, however you want to categorize that institution, I've worked at and I've used the same formula. And it's based on strategy, putting people in the right place, data. Data is critical. I was saying to Shabazz earlier, my PhD happens to be in research measurement statistics. Not that I'm so smart, but I understand the value of data and how data can inform us. And that's basically how I manage my enrollment management model. So it's those 3 things just off the top: systems, strategy, making sure you've got resources in the right place. I've never been at a place where I had, it's always do more with less. And making sure you understand the university's mission and commitment and getting the enterprise, I always call it, because it's the enterprise of the university, to work together. So those are kind of the broader things that you have to start with and get in place. And then it's just a matter of watching all along the way, making sure you're looking at your data year over year, month over month, day to day, to see how you're moving and if you've got to make changes. So that's a broad summary to that.
That's an impressive approach, Dr. Peters. Shabazz, you have a unique perspective here, working closely with institutions worldwide. So, from your point of view, how can technology empower institutions to achieve exactly what Dr. Peters described, like both growing and refining the profile of the students, also, which is very important in this landscape, without sacrificing, personalization or inclusivity at the same time?
Sure, Tanya. As Dr. Peter said, she has been using the same formula, right? That is system, strategy, and data. And I'm sure that's a very valuable point to start this particular discussion, right? So when it comes to technology, right, which is one of the core functionalities that Dr. Peter has also described. So technology, when used intentionally, is not just a tool for scaling; it's a strategy enabler for personalization at scale. So at Meritto, we have seen how data-driven systems can help institutions go beyond traditional matrices, allowing them to identify students who not only meet academic criteria, but also align with the institution values and mission. Right? Advanced CRM systems, predictive analysis, and with now AI-empowered engagement tools allow schools, universities to segment audience, effectively tailor communications based on individual preferences and behavior, and nurture relationships through personalized content and outreach. At the same time, one important factor is inclusivity doesn't take a backseat, because with the right tech you can uncover undeserved geographies, spot patterns, like Dr. Peters also said, when since he has done his PhD in statics. So understanding the particular data pointers, patterns, right, in terms of data, in terms of, let's say, demographic data, adopt strategies to remove barriers. And this way, institutions aren't just filling seats; they are building communities that are both diverse as well as mission aligned.
Right, right.
So
Totally correct.
can I
Yes,
follow up on that? Is that
yes, please.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So Shabazz, right on point, KPIs. And I talk to presidents, I go to universities all over the world to talk about enrollment. And the first thing I said, what are your KPIs? What are the things that you're connecting? And oftentimes it's quiet. Talking to my admissions people in the room here, whether you're a recruiter or the transfer coordinator or the person responsible for social media outlook or the one that is running the reports from your CRM, you always want to know what your measurements are, right? What should it be? If you're in an admissions office and you don't understand your melt from applications, and I'll talk about ours real quickly, but applications to completed applications to admitted, denied for what category, admitted in what category, how all that rolls. So every single day, I get up in the morning and I'm looking at a report and I'm looking at it comparatively to last year. So, when you talk about that admissions funnel, right, we're talking about an application completed, decisions, then it's about confirmation. They're paying a confirmation fee, okay, or whatever tool you're using to measure interest as they're moving down that funnel. So now they pay the confirmation fee. Now they're going to NSO. Now they're paying their housing deposit. So you want to track that from beginning to end. And I always took the approach in enrollment. If there's an institution where your admissions office is operating and they just stop where they stop, and your financial aid office is just packaging based on whatever philosophy or structure they have. And your scholarship office is just deciding who and when and what scholarships. But if you're not seeing through your predictive analytics, like Shabazz said, your reporting, your KPIs, your year-over-year measurements, whatever tool you're using, your Excel spreadsheet, whatever tool you're using in that institution, then you really don't know where you're going and where you need to course correct. So I just wanted to kind of tie that up with what Shabazz says with that predictive analytics, those KPIs. Those things are really important.
That's great, ma'am. Thank you so much. And building on that theme only, enrollment isn't just shaped by processes. We have always heard that institution policy also plays a role. So, were there some institutional policies at CAU that you needed to challenge, to change, or create to perhaps unlock this growth?
So you all saw in the description, this is true data. When I got there, the average GPA, incoming GPA, I got there in 20 is when I started at Cluckley. So I've been there 5 years. But the average GPA coming in was 2.8. This was like right at COVID. And we had, like many institutions, became test optional. So the only real measurement of a student's academic performance is a GPA. And we all know in admissions, enrollment, what that means. It varies from state to state, school to school, country to country. So we had to figure out, and we needed enrollment. So, we had this whole issue, and what the university did really well, I don't think they were prepared for it, but they did it really well, is they made that flip and became virtual. And we were able to retain most of our students for that 18 months and still recruit students. Then when we got back to campus in 2021, we had to create a whole new experience, right? So that we could get our brand up. People could understand who we were. We had to do a lot of things for the campus, but all of these, I call them KPIs, connected to get that brand. And then, so I had to go to the Senate, and I had to go before the Senate and say, I want to increase our GPA for incoming freshmen. Couldn't just do it. That was a policy, and they had this GPA for decades. So I had to go to the Senate and get the Senate to say, we're not going to do test scores, continue not to do test scores. We had an academy that wanted the SAT, ACT, but I looked at the data from previous terms, and it really wasn't, previous years, it really wasn't impacting us. So I had to go to the Senate to say, no, let's remain test optional so we can be competitive. Let's increase the GPA, the entering GPA, minimal GPA to 3.0. I knew if I could get that up there, we were admitting students with 2.3. So the average GPA was 2.7, but we were admitting students with 2.3, 2.2, so talk about the average. So I had to move that up. So that was a big policy. Had to go to the Senate and get them to buy that. Had to go in front of the alumni council because, hey, when I went to Clark Atlanta University back in the day, I got in with a 2.5. The other big thing we had to change in terms of policies and process was how we manage financial closure, or what we call financial clearance. So the goal should always be when the semester starts or when they move into housing, they're financially paid for the semester. But what was happening at Clark Atlanta University, because they were trying to hold on to enrollment, they were admitting hundreds of students, letting them move onto campus, and they still hadn't committed to dollars. Did they have the funding to be able to pay for $40,000 a year? So they were basically moving around enrollment through this 8th, 7th, 9th week of the semester. So I had to say, all right, we're going to stop. That was a hard stop because I wouldn't allow it to go. They wanted to kind of gradually. I said, no, we're going to stop. So beginning, I think it was like the 2022, students can no longer come to Clark Atlanta University without being fully packaged. In other words, we know that there's funding there. They could not move into housing. We could not give them their key. So we made that change. That was significant for the university. But what started happening is the funding was there. Students were showing up on campus. They were ready to go. Probably the other big thing that we changed over the past 2-3 years, process and policy, was orientation. So they had made orientation where it wasn't mandatory. And then after COVID, students were just showing up, new students, new freshmen, just showing up. A lot of them still in their bonnets because that's how they lived, virtually going to high school. So they didn't really have really good social behavior. And we were having a problem retaining those students. So enrollment is not just bringing in new students, it's probably more importantly, is keeping them. So I had to go back again before several committees and boards in the Senate and executive cabinet to say, I want to reinstitute mandatory orientation. It's a hard sell, but we were able to do it. Problem with that, it wasn't enough. So now I had to go back a year later and say, all right, mandatory new student orientation, 2 days. I want them overnight. So that meant we had to push a lot of our processes and timelines up, right? So that when they got to orientation, when they got to orientation, they were ready to go. And we could do better at indoctrinating students because they really weren't stitching in. And a lot of these were COVID high school kids. And so they had no concept of classroom behavior, much less college classroom behavior. So those are the big three things that kind of turn, and I would say those were cultural shifts. They were significant process and policy issues, but they culturally shifted how we managed and thought about enrollment at the university. I'll stop there. But those are three things.
Well, that's very inspiring, ma'am, I would say. Now, speaking of selecting the right students, Shabazz, this connects well with the idea of enrollment growth, how enrollment growth must focus not just on volume, but on fit also. So, from your experience, what does it take technologically to implement systems that help institutions enroll not just more students, but specifically the right students?
Absolutely. So from my experience, working globally across 50 plus countries, enrolling more students is no longer the only goal. Like Dr. Peters also mentioned, it's all about enrolling the right set of students, those who are aligned with the institution's mission, likely to succeed and persist through the graduation. So the fall rate, it's not about just getting the student on the gate, but also retaining those students during their tenure. To do this, institutions need a stronger technological foundation that connects data, automates intelligently, and enables team to act with precision together. So first, in my opinion, it starts with a data infrastructure. Institutions need systems that consolidate student information from inquiry to enrollment. Similarly, they need an SIS system to manage their academic profiles, engagement history, behavioral signals in one place. This enables a 360-degree view of each prospective student. Second is intelligent automation that I think is a very key player here. CRMs with built-in workflows and AI can help institutions personalize communication at scale, scoring leads, recommending next best action for that particular prospect students, and ensuring no high potential student falls through the crack. Third, in my opinion, could be right analytics, right? Though Dr. Peters here, having PhD in statistics, she would be the right person to tell about that. So right analytics and dashboards allow enrollment leaders to constantly refine target strategies, helping them understand what works for whom and why. So different students coming from different backgrounds, different academic, backgrounds, or let's say different cultures, what you're providing to them. It's not about just having more tools. I think it's about having smart, integrated system that empowers team to make data-driven, decision, which are mission aligned based on the decisions, or let's say the short-term or the longer-term goals of the particular organization. So that's my perspective, on the question that you have asked.
So, Tanya, I have to follow Shabazz with,
Yeah,
he
definitely.
gets my brain going. And so the CRM, when took over admissions, and again, I did this at every institution. So I'm going to look at how are they communicating. So when I got there, we had about 19,000 applications. Most of our applications come in through the Common App, like a lot of people, right? Students can apply to 20 different 30 schools. I didn't know where we were in terms of choice with that. Then we had, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, little old ladies that were in the back room, literally printing, Shabazz, don't fall off your seat, printing the Common App and then entering that data into Banner. Okay, so we had to fix that right away. And I won't put the name of the company that we ended up choosing, but basically, they process our applications. That's how we were able to scale and be receptive and be responsive and do communications, because it's attached to this whole system, our CRM, that are very unique to the student. So if a student is from, I'll say, Detroit, Michigan, and is a biology major, and that's on their application, we can customize, and we now do, our communications very specifically to that student. We right now have about a 26% male female population. Good for the guys, bad for the girls, right? So I've really been working over the past few years to increase our male population. Talk about another one. We use I don't know if I can name the name of the company, but we also are using another company, and it doesn't matter, just find one to do this for you, that's looking at our population. So they took data going back 3 years, our admission data, our applicant data, and our acceptance. So this year, we closed our applications at about 48,000 for this year, fall 2025. We admitted about 18,000, those that met that admission requirement. We denied everybody else. Okay, a lot of students got denied. Basically, if they fell below the 3.0, we didn't even look at their application. So when we pulled that in, when we do the CRM and this other predicted model, now we can say, and I sit and look at this, all right, if I need 100 more freshman students, or I want to retain, and the model has a retention part in it too, and I want to retain, I want to bring it up 5-6%. I can actually, and talk about connected KPIs, I can actually take my merit scholarship pool and start moving things around strategically to see how it will improve and benefit my mail stream coming in, or top kids from top 10 high schools. Or I'm thinking about the targets that were, of the 48,000 applications, 18,000 plus admitted. Now I've got to go through there and really pick and choose, right? And it's these tools that we have. They're called AI now, but they've been there, right? These tools that we have that allow us to be real smart about it. With what's happening in higher ed right now, for all you recruiters out there, right now, parents are more worried about funding. Where's it going to come from? If they're international students, if I send my baby to the States, will they be deported back? What will that mean? What kind of support mechanisms do I have to play? So it's kind of it's a scary time right now for everybody attached to higher ed. It doesn't matter, whether it's a big school, small school, PWI, HBCU, it really doesn't matter. It's really kind of a worrisome time. So people are kind of circling the wagon. So now when you recruit and you're out there looking at this big population of students, I'm so glad I have the tools so I can better slice and dice, if you will, of this population using this tool, this predictive model tool that looks at my population of admitted students and all the different demographics, who they are, where they came from, what their families' background and income, all that data that we have. And it literally says, this student from this area, from this zip code, if you give them 5,000 more in merit, they have a 90% chance of retaining to the third year. And we all know if we can get them to the third year, they're going to finish, right? So those are the tools that we have to use now so we can be smarter and not lose our pace and competitiveness. So it can't slow us down. It's really got to accelerate our ability to make decisions and all of that. Thanks.
Right. Ma'am, asking in this same context to this, we're talking about students, we talked about attracting the right students, enrolling them. We just forgot talking about the enrollment teams here. I just want to hear that we have mostly heard often enrollment teams must achieve more with fewer resources and faster than ever, right? It's kind of very famous phrase that I would say. So, how did you reframe this pressure into opportunity at CAU, especially while staying true to your mission of the university?
So I believe in the one-stop shop model. And I learned that when I was at Georgia State University, and I created the first physical one-stop shop for the state of Georgia system schools. It is still functioning, it's still doing, and I learned that because my career kind of took me through all the enrollment offices. So I've worked in the registrar, admissions, financial aid, and when this thing called enrollment management came up, mostly because of ERP models that were being built, it said you've got to connect the dots. So the more your team understands how all of these things work, the better you function as a team. So I insist that my admissions directors know as much about financial aid as anybody can know. They're not actually processing it, but they know, they understand how it connects to a mission. It's not just handoff, and you're the next office that handles that. At Clark-Atlanta University, I'm over enrollment management, which is financial aid, admissions, graduate, undergraduate, scholarships, and Office of New Student Family Programs. But I'm also over student affairs, student life. And so residence life and all of that. And the reason we moved to that model, they just volunteered me and had me in that model. It's been about a year I've been doing that, is so we could be more efficient. So students can have more efficient service, connected understanding of what they're supposed to do, how and when. Our deadlines connect. So it's, the financial aid is not processing just because this is what they do and this is calendar that they put together. We work together, and I require my teams and everybody working there, because I think that way, you should know as much about this process. You don't have to do it all, but you could. You could guide your student or a parent through this. There's no handoff. And that model, that leadership model that I've had for decades now, has really helped going to big institutions, smaller institutions, as you figure out capacity, who should do what resources that you have. As long as you are working synergistically and as close to that as possible, most things can happen very, very well. I have a saying in my office, and it's on my wall, and it's there's two actually, but one is shift, and it's strategically headed in the future together. That is how I run all my meetings, all our discussions across the board, across the enterprise. We are shifting together, right? That's one. And then the other one is continuous improvement is better than postponed perfection. That's why data can help you, because you can always measure year over year, day over day, where you are. So that's how I lead my teams. And then, then they go off and be VPs for enrollment at other institutions because they know how to do that. And the more, and you all are seeing it in the jobs, right? It used to be, been here long enough, there'd be a student affairs side, and then enrollment management over the past 20 years and that's the three-legged stool: registrar, admissions, financial aid. That's the typical enrollment management structure. But what you're seeing a lot more now, because universities have to be more efficient, is this connection of across the board for those things that impact students. So I own everything that has to do with the student outside of the classroom. My provost owns everything that has to do with the student inside the classroom. Our responsibility are to make sure those ecosystems work well together. So that's how I lead.
That's powerful, ma'am. That's really powerful. Shabazz, this brings me up with the challenge of maintaining personalized communication at scale. So, can you please let our audience know how can enrollment technology platforms help institutions automate these communication journeys, while ensuring that they still feel relevant and personal to each student profile?
Sure, Tanya. I think, this is where modern engagement, or modern enrollment platforms really shine. The best technology doesn't replace a human touch, it amplifies it. So like Dr. Peters also said, right, that you want every department within the organization should know. It should not be just a hand holding, but rather a better communication in terms of why they are transferring a student to a different person, right? Why that expertise is required in that particular place. So that is very important in terms of giving a better student experience to anyone who's gonna apply for your organization. Whether they take admission or not, that's a different thing. But how you are counseling them, how you are consulting them, it's more important, right? Which brings me to the point, when automation, when done right, doesn't feel robotic, right? It feels timely, thoughtful, and tailored. So at Meritto's, what we have seen in institutions can design communication journey that adapts to student behavior in real time. For instance, if a student shows interest in a specific program, that the system can trigger a series of personalized messages, which could be on any of the platform based on the platform on which he or she might be comfortable in consuming the information. Could be emails, could be WhatsApp messages, or could be a counselor follow-up that speaks directly with that particular student who is showing the intent. These journeys, are typically powered by data. So everything, like Dr. Peters also said, is that you have to understand the data and you have to understand that in the example that she stated, where she could analyze the data that if, these are the top 10% of the students from this particular geography and particular school, there are high chances that they will go till third year. So when it comes to analyzing that particular data, right, from location to academic background or to engagement history, and with the dynamic content and segmentation, right, the same message can be adopted to resonate differently from each segment of students. So these workflows can be created for hyper personalized nurturing. Most importantly, these platforms free up counselors and admission teams from repetitive tasks so that they can focus on meaningful one-on-one interactions where it truly matters. So it's not just automation, it's personalization at scale delivered with, I can say, precision and empathy. So understanding the patterns, designing your workflows in such a manner that it can reduce your repetitive work and send the communication to the candidate on a right channel in a right manner based on the background, or let's say whatever data pointers that you are having that can help you to hyper personalize the communication.
Right.
And those dashboards, you're so right. The other thing I require of my team, especially my leadership team, and then require them with their teams, is that we're all understanding what we're looking at when we're looking at a report. So when they gave me a report, I'll ask, where were we with confirmation fees this time last year? I expect that they can get that information right away. They need to. If that's not an easy task for them, that means they're not really thinking about what they need to be thinking about. They're not really measuring what they need to be measure. So I think that's real important that they own it. The other thing I've noticed when I started in enrollment, one of my first jobs was over Banner, implementing Banner at a big university. Big job, big university, 200 plus project team. We own functional owners or users owned their systems. One of the things we had here was what's called shared services from Ellucian. So basically our registrar, our director of admissions at the time, and other key individuals really didn't understand how their system worked. They depended too much on shared services. Flip that around. So making sure many of them are at Ellucian right now so that they understand, what's going on. We are migrating to another platform within Ellucian Banner. I didn't allow my directors to kind of sit back and let some programmer do all the work. They had to go in, they had to understand it. And then not just in isolation, we had to do it together. So using these tools, university can buy a lot of tools, but I think what's really important in leadership is that the tool is used, is understood, is measured, and not in isolation. So.
Right. Shabazz, we were also talking about the data. Ma'am mentioned about data and importance of it. So, in just continuing to that, I would like to ask you, like, how do you advise institutions, especially mission-driven ones, to use data efficiently without becoming transactional or mechanical?
Absolutely. So this is a very valid question, and this is a concern we hear very often. Right, data can be incredibly powerful, like we were talking about, but only when it is used in a service of the mission, right? Not in the place of it. So you should take informed decisions. Every data gives you a pattern. So you have to pick up, like ma'am also said, that if you are understanding the particular data, it is giving you the direction of the next step, like what could be the right strategy. But if your team is unable to analyze that data, that could be a harm for you, because then you're taking decisions based on your guts, right? So the key, is to treat data as a compass, not a calculator, if I may say. Right? It should guide decisions and not dictate them. So next time I'm going to meet you, I'll bring this quote. This could be a third quote in your room.
Like that. That is so important because people rely on a number and don't even understand it. I like that, Shabazz. That's a good one.
Sure. So what in my experience at Meritto, when we work with mission-driven institutions, we encourage them to use data to uncover stories, not just stats. So for example, instead of just tracking how many students opened an email, look at what topic drive engagement across different demographics or let's say geographies. That tells you what students care about. What is the one thing that they are looking from your particular organization? And that's the insight that can shape more meaningful conversations with a particular prospects. Also use data to enhance empathy. Like predictive models can flag students who may need more support and personalized attention rather than being mechanical. That actually allows institutions to show up more human, more timely, more relevant, and more supportive, which is also a very big factor because it's a career decision that any prospect is taking. So they don't want to just rely on the same set of conversation. Even if two students are enrolling for a same program, they are seeking different things from that particular program in terms of their career growth. So ultimately, it's all about aligning data strategy with institution values. When your mission is your north star, right? I can say data simply helps you to reach more on the right students in a thoughtful and value aligned way. So that's how data driven decisions can be taken when it comes to any of the organization that is mission driven.
Shabazz, there's always, and I'm kind of more of a data informed rather than data decided kind of person, right? You hear people go back and forth on it, and of course in higher ed we have these philosophical debates about things, but data is critical to everything, but it's the story. So just one data point, and as when my team says, Dr. Peters, I want to try something else, and I'm always like, okay, but make sure you can measure where we are and what you're doing. If you don't have a way to measure it, it could just be a book, it could be Excel, but we've got to have some data. So when I went and changed the GPA, and I kind of did it quietly and started slicing and dicing and just admitting a higher quality student and admitting them earlier so I could capture that student, not admitting them in June, they've picked somebody else by then. So doing that. So when I saw that I had data that could inform my discussion with the Senate, with the University Senate, that's when I went to the Senate to have that discussion. If I had just went to the Senate and my gut said, if I do this, this is what's going to happen, and I'm with you on that, then that would have been the wrong kind of way of asking for a change of policy because my gut said that. So I'm with you on that, Shabazz, and I see that quite a bit. I also see data use in isolation, which is kind of goes back to how I lead my enrollment teams, and to my colleagues that are in the room. Make sure you're informed. If you're an admissions recruiter, you want to know just as much as what's going on in financial aid, housing, residence life. So make sure you build those connections across the campus. You can be kind of your own one-stop shop. And that's what I say to each of my staff. You should be able to help that student all the way through. We just don't answer something and then they got to go find and run somebody else. You take them to that next place. So encourage that, and data will inform you of the path. Right? It's never one data point, and it's always comparative. I can't go to my president, to George T. French Jr., not this president, and say, hey, this is our numbers right now for fall. He doesn't want that. He wants to know how that is compared to last year. How many confirmations this time? I'm the same way, so that we know we're moving in the right direction to our targets or we're not. So I'm more of a data informed person, but you got to have it. And don't, data used in isolation doesn't serve any purpose.
Right. That's fascinating. This leads me to our next topic, the global recruitment. So, Dr. Peters, global recruitment is increasingly a part of enrollment strategies everywhere now. So, is international student recruitment a focus at CAU? Like, if so, what strategies do you employ to attract global talent while staying aligned with your institutional values and mission?
So it is. I don't think it's a priority that it could be, quite frankly. And that's not really unusual for HBCUs in my practice and working with them over the years. That international recruitment of faculty and students isn't really a big thing, unless maybe you're talking about Howard University at R1 or some others. So if it's an R1 institution, there's a high research intensive. You're at any institution, you're going to see more international students. what I did at CAU, and I did this at a few HBCUs through my consultant work and working with them directly, is get them to give merit scholarships, which all students get, incoming students, graduate, incoming undergraduate, incoming graduate, merit scholarships, which is essentially your university's tuition discount, right? And to give it to international students. The policy at CAU, and this is not unusual for HBCUs, I don't know why, is that the student had to file a FAFSA. Well, international students don't file a FAFSA. So I had to, at my prior HBCU, and this will be the third one that I've actually got them to change his policy. It's like, I don't care where the best and brightest come from, you guys. If this kid was sitting in Georgia with the same academic profile, it's about merit. Merit isn't about need, or it's about academic merit. That's what a merit scholarship is. So I had to go to this. First, I went to the president, and I knew he was okay with it because I got him to do it at a prior institution. So he knew I was coming with that. And I said, we've got to build a campus friendly, so for international students. And I think if you to get a visa, they've got to show that they have funding. So it's makes sense in everything to recruit international students. They'll probably be better funded in some ways than our students that are sitting right next door to us. So I got them to agree to allow us to give international merit scholarships for our incoming students. The biggest impact that's had for us is our graduate program. We're now getting more PhDs, biology students, chemistry students, because we can effectively be competitive with them across the world. So that's what I'm excited about. That's kind of always been my strategy at institutions. When I was at a big public institution, of course, there was a whole department and all of that. But at the smaller schools, it's, again, points to mission and enrollment and getting the best and the brightest. And that means you go wherever the best and the brightest are, and you offer a competitive scholarship. So we were able to do that again. I had to go to the Senate and, present the policy. And it was I had a lot of faculty, particularly in biology and chemistry, that were really excited about it. So that wasn't something I had to fight too much in the Senate. And then what I did with my CFO, of course, they're looking at tuition discount. We haven't increased our tuition discount with this new policy. We've just realigned those dollars so that we can better choose the students that we want to, not just any button seat, but the right button seat. And it's those tools, those predictive tools that we're using that is helping me to do that. Again, 47,000 applications. It sounds great, but it's a lot of work. You got to be very strategic and have the right tools to find the students that we want. We only have 1,200 slots, so.
Well, continuing to that thought, Shabazz, institutions are under tremendous pressure to operate efficiently. So, what's one specific feature or capability within your technology stack that could significantly help institutions navigate this pressure?
So, I do understand institutes are under pressure, but in my opinion, though, I'll, point out one particular tool. But like Dr. Peter said, there is a power of one. So if you can bring everything in a one tool, that can give you a more comprehensive view. But if I have to highlight one feature that could be a game changer for institutions under enrollment pressure, it would be, let's say, the journey builder with the modern engagement suits. The Gen Zs that we talk about, right? They're not having that type of patience. Right? So it's important to have the tools that can interact with them on runtime basis. The time has gone wherein particular student will come and read everything on your website. It's a time where you should have a tool that can interact with a student on runtime basis by putting the human touch into that particular thing, right? So if I have to tell you, how it works, right? So there are multi-channel communication flows that anyone can create when it comes to journey builders, right? Based on the student behavior, interest, right? Stage where they're exactly stuck in the admission funnel. So whether the student is just exploring halfway through your application or hesitant at decision stage, the system notes and it responds accordingly with the right message at the right channel at the right time. So it could be an AI tool, if I talk about today's scenario, or it could be a tool that is prompting them on email. That could also be a one that can be used. It's not just automation. I think it's, intelligent engagement that feels personal.
Like that.
And in times of, pressure, this kind of scalability with precision is exactly what institutions need to do more with less, while still delivering the high touch experience. So I think this is one of the examples of technology that can meet operational efficiency and student can be student centric, at the same time. So it's all about what you're having in your plate and how beautifully you are using these particular tools to orchestrate your particular admission cycle and interact with those students in a hyper personalized manner.
Right.
Yeah. So, Shabazz, when you talk about communication, I like intelligent engagement. That's really I'm getting a lot of good things from you, Shabazz. It really is about being intelligent with with who you're engaging, what you're engaging, and why. As you were talking, and I think about how quickly things have changed. You guys probably are too young to remember when recruiting was all about collateral, papers, view books, and all these things that you would travel, these big suitcases that you would take with you because people had to tangibly feel things. It's changed. I love, and I think COVID pushed a lot of that where we had to start figuring out ways to communicate that weren't, these pieces of documents and all that. And that's been the struggle, I'd say, for still CAU, for some of the staff, registrar folks that have been there 1,000 years. They're still very tactile. They like that paper. But the QR code, I'm thinking about our materials that we use for fall 2025 compared to the materials when I showed up at CAU and even at prior institutions. There'd be whole rooms full of where you stuffed packages and view books and people would get these things at their home and all that. That stopped when we realized the parents still want to, the actual letter and stuff like that. The grandparents are put in a frame, but the students could care less about that. It's not efficient for them. They can't do anything. So when we're announcing things on campus, it's time to do your FAFSA or it's time to register or whatever. It's mostly posters with a picture that they would understand what we're visually trying to tell them and a QR code. And that's it. Because they got cell phones and they're going to go and get what they want to get, how they want to get it, and we get much more engagement. So intelligent engagement is the rule of the day, and I'm finding that could change from year to year. I mean, it's changing so dramatically. It's why tools are just something you have to have. Yeah, intelligent engagement.
Wonderful insights, ma'am. Now, on a related note, at the heart of enrollments are teams and frontline staff, working directly with students, enhancing their experience. Now that we were talking about student engagement, student experience, so how do you nurture your enrollment team so they remain student-centered, even when chasing ambitious numbers, just so that they don't forget that the ultimate goal is, to enhance the experience of the student?
So one, I make sure they're younger than me because they have. So it's got to be a team that loves what they do, loves being in front of students. If you're in, a financial aid person is a typical person that works in financial aid. That's that spirit, that's that personality. But when you have your enrollment, who's out there with the students, whether it's admissions or financial aid or whoever, they've got to have the right energy. So that's just a requirement of the job because you can get burned out, right? And again, what I try to do is make sure that we are relying on the enterprise for the work. We're not working in isolation, that we're always doing teams. And that seems to keep people motivated because, working in isolation is when you can just kind of get disconnected. So we just work across the board in the enterprise. There's a group I run. I've done this at every institution called the Enrollment Management Operations Group. We call us the sausage makers. There's about 21, and it crosses the entire enterprise, including advisement, all those functions that touch students. And we meet every 2 weeks. We make sure we understand what's happening in admissions or financial aid or advisement or the registrar. We go over the academic calendar together. We make sure when we put our plans together for the next year in terms of what we're going to do when housing application is going to open up, when the FAFSA is going to get done. We make sure that it makes sense, that everybody, that it makes sense into what we're trying to achieve for our students. So I just thank you. For me, it's making sure they're young. Even some old ones are pretty energetic, making sure they have the ability to make the change, right? To be out there. And then there's two groups that you gotta have. And these are students. Our ambassadors, which do our tours, and we do more tours on the Clark Atlanta University campus than they do at the MLK Center. On average, we have about 2,000 to 3,000 individuals walking our campus every single month. Our tours book out months in advance. Who runs that? The base of the university are our student ambassadors. Anywhere from a sophomore, maybe a second semester freshman, up until junior. We leave them alone as seniors because we need them to focus and get out. But our student ambassadors, and then our orientation guys who we train all year, and they manage the major events and things that happen with our student groups. They're our body movers, they're our cheerleaders for our students. So having my team have the younger teams and the students and others kind of keeps the energy. Plus, I know I got to pay them, because if they're good, and my team are recruited all the time, if they're good, other institutions are going to want to get them. Sometimes they get them, so you just got to keep it moving. And when I took over admissions, undergraduate admissions at Clark Atlanta University, there was one staff member left. One. And we turned it around and had the highest enrollment that they had ever had in that first fall. And it was really building the enterprise, getting the resources together, getting the team to make it happen. And I always talk about the enterprise. It's not just one, it's the team that makes it, particularly on the student experience side. So.
Thanks for sharing that. Finally, as we start wrapping up our conversation, I'd like both our speakers to, share one critical piece of advice. So, Dr. Peters, if you were advising another mission-driven university beginning their enrollment transformation, so what is the single most important mindset shift that you would recommend them?
So, one, set reasonable targets. You don't want, I would love and probably could bring in 1,600 students. I probably could. I don't have 1,600 beds. We don't have enough courses so that all 1,600 students could get 15 credits. So one, set reasonable targets. It's sustainable growth, not jumping from this to that. Set reasonable targets. Two, then develop your KPIs, meaning how are you going to measure those targets all along the way. And then three, make sure the enterprise is moving together. So strategically headed in the future together. Admissions can't go off one way, financial aid can't go off another way, housing can't go off another way. It has to happen together. So those are three things. Work as a team, work as an enterprise.
Thank you, ma'am. Shabazz, if you were advising another mission-driven university just beginning their enrollment transformation, so what do you see the next frontier in enrollment technology that you would want them to know and be prepared for?
Got it. So in terms of, next frontier, if we talk about, right? So in my opinion, it could be, intelligent adaptability, right? So we are moving beyond statistic funnel and linear journey into a world where AI, behavior signals, and real-time decision allow institutions to respond instantly to each student's evolving context. Let's imagine a student who has been browsing through your financial aid page late night, hasn't responded to your email, but let's say opened a WhatsApp message about scholarship within minutes. That's a behavioral signal. AI can detect that particular pattern, or if you're having an intelligent, smart system that can analyze that pattern and prompt the counselor to follow up, right? Or surface a tailored piece of content right then and there. Right? That's a real-time funnel optimization that tools can help in terms of intelligent adaptability. Right. So, but I think, here's one key, right? Authenticity must remain at the core, right? Technology should amplify your values, not mask them. That, could be one important factor that you have to consider. Institutions need to ensure that, even as automations and AI become more, prevalent, every touch point still reflects empathy, mission, and relevance. Right. To add Meritto also, we are already building this for our future products. Right. Our platform can also read behavioral cues, adopt journeys on real time, and support AI-driven recommendation while giving teams full control to keep messaging human and intention there. So institute should be asking, how we can leverage technology, or let's say AI, not just to convert faster, but to connect deeper with the particular students, because the most advanced tech will be the one that feels more human to the particular prospects, rather than just they can analyze, because today's generation is very smart. They can analyze, this communication is more system generated, or this communication is more human. So everyone, technology cannot replace human, so that human touch should be the one that could bring drastical change. And this is my point in terms of next frontier. If you ask, in my opinion, that will be there in enrollment technology.
Right.
I'm hoping as these, and of course, I get emails and calls all the time from companies, try this, try that, try this, try that. And I'm often most interested in the ones that kind of can show me quickly what they are doing really differently. And what I'm looking for, so Shabazz, you can get out there and get folks to design this, is when we talk about communications, again, connecting. One of my challenges, and actually I've been using ChatGPT, basic AI, to help me with it, but I'm thinking, man, if I had like a tool that did this, and there probably is one out there, where we've got communications coming from all these various departments at various times along the enrollment spectrum for new and continuing students. And the challenge I have is that the tone is different, the completion is different, the tone, like you write well, you don't write well. So what I've been doing, and I'm kind of experimenting with it, is I've taken 4 core letters that have to come out from financial aid, from admissions, from Office of New Student Programs and Residence Life. And I've using really literally ChatGPT to say, make this more friendly for CAU, same fonts, same request within ChatGPT. And what I ended up getting, and I just did it with 4 letters, was such beautifully connected communications from each office across the board. Because I looked at all 4 and said, all right, this one should say this and connect to this. So that's the power of AI. And again, didn't cost me anything. It didn't cost the university anything. It's just intelligent engagement. I'm going back to that. So I would love if there was a tool, and there probably is, that could take the communications, and this is a struggle for all higher ed institutions, and come up with a way so that it's a connected piece. It all serves the same thing. That's a struggle in a lot of institutions. And if we could do better with that, I think our constituents would be happier.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, that's a good product suggestion. So we do have, a lot of tools that meet this particular criteria from student front as well as interdepartment front. When you talk about, like you were telling, they are working in silos. So can you bring everyone in a single platform where they can see what is happening and they all can work in a single direction to achieve the mission or the goal of the particular organization? So I'm sure we have those functionalities in our tools. So I'm sure next time I'm at your beautiful campus, I'll be happy to showcase you how that works.
Love it.
Well, respecting both of your times, I would like to, conclude our discussion here, although I'm just enjoying it a lot. But thank you so much.
It's time to go. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Your insights. We've explored strategies, policies, processes, and powerful technologies. That enable institutions to grow efficiently, all while remaining deeply aligned with their missions and values. Clearly, success in enrollment management today isn't just about reaching numbers. It's about creating personalized experiences for students, for the teams, right use of data, embracing innovation thoughtfully, and building sustainable systems to empower your teams also. So thank you so much for those insights. And to our audience, to attendees, we appreciate you taking the time to engage with us today. We hope you leave inspired, equipped, and ready to lead your institution towards peak enrollment efficiency. Until we meet again, stay focused, stay mission driven, and thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.